Shawn Hendrix, survival dad on MrBeast. What an awesome interview. I got a chance to hang out with him in Washington, D.C., and he's just as cool in person as he is on the show. He earned his spot on MrBeast by winning 100 Days in a Circle.
And that's it for the destruction. See you in 19 hours.
All right, sounds good.
I'm gonna make $500,000 tomorrow. Good night. Can you guys see the timer?
There it is, right there. Haven't seen them in a long time. Emotions are hitting me pretty heavy right now. Money's the thing we trade our life for. Giving up a third of a year of my life for $500,000. Make sure you're trading your life for things that are worth it.
How are you feeling?
I'm so ready to get out of here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you mind staying in this room while I set up the surprise?
I'm not leaving this room. I'm not risking getting out.
Okay.
It's got to be minutes now. I hear people outside. You can just hear it, just that background noise of 100 people talking. Wait, something's happening.
Everybody, it's time! Give me a countdown from 10. 10, 9,
What?
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Oh my gosh.
come on out!
Oh my God.
It has officially been 100 days! Step on the red line!
Are you sure?
It has been 100 days!
Okay.
The challenge is
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
over! Here's your check for $500,000. Everyone give it a round of applause!
This has been an amazing 100 days. I am glad it's over though.
It's amazing.
Shawn, we're back!
What did you do while we were gone?
Hopefully nobody gets wet now.
Bro, I didn't even know we packed lights.
Yeah, they're awesome, right?
Oh, God!
Oh my God, you guys scared me.
We made it!
Yeah, we're back.
I made you guys dinner and coconut water.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Cheers, boys. Wow, it tastes like a coconut.
Looks like we got good on the mics. Shawn, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Thanks
Good
for
to
having
see
me.
you.
Yeah.
So you drove in from North Carolina today?
No, Washington, D.C.
Oh, from D.C. today,
Yeah,
right?
North
And-
Carolina a couple days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. And what were you doing in D.C.?
Was up there. You know, it's interesting, like, nobody lobbies for the people, right? There's lobbyists for everything out there. And so I just felt like I wanted to go up there and lobby, basically, for Western North Carolina. RFK is getting confirmed this week. And so I told both of my senators, like, I would love to see RFK appointed. And it just felt like I wanted to go up there and kind of learn the ropes of what DC's like, you know? And so that's what I did. I spent all day out there.
Right on. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
I met you when you, I don't know if you first got onto X, but maybe started first using it more seriously.
Yeah.
And I saw on your banner like MrBeast survival dad, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh damn, like, who is this guy, right? And I think at first you were talking to me about potentially selling coins on
Yeah.
X.
So it's funny is, I own well, I should say my wife owns, you know, but a coin and pawn shop and gun shop. So it's just a place down in Greenville called Southern Gun and Pawn. And I was trying to think of ways to like take this business, has been in business for 32 years, and expose it to the internet of fashion. And then we also homestead. And so I was thinking about like making homestead content. You know, I'm big on food freedom and financial freedom. And so I see gold and silver as part of that. I see farming as part of that. And so it's just, I kind of like, what am I going to talk about on social media? You know what I mean? I thought those were the things. And we're getting, I was like, okay, I'm talking about coins. We're talking about gold and silver. We're talking about farming, you know, just things that give you like true freedom. Freedom with your food, freedom with your money. And then Hurricane Helene hit. And I was like, well, that's kind of when the real story on X starts for me, at least. You know, before that, it's just doing, ran the TV show for World Series of Poker, and then got called by Jimmy to go be in a circle for 100 days. And that's when, that video was what started my life in front of the camera. Because before that, I wouldn't be comfortable in front of a camera. But when you spend 100 days in a bubble with, you know, 40 cameras pointed at you, you get over yourself real quick.
So you said you did the show for the World Series of Poker before
Yeah.
that? I didn't know that part.
Yeah, because I was behind the camera. So I've been in film and TV since '99, and I started out doing wireless video technology. I mean, way back when it was like a cool new thing. Like this is impressive, you know. And that led me my first role as a producer on a TV show to help with wireless video and authenticity of street racing. And yeah, it was just a random side thing. But once you get your first foot in the door, you meet a bunch of people, just like today. Hey, come work on this, come work on that. And so that led into esports, which I built some of the biggest esports studios in America back when it was in its infancy. And then that led me to doing HPO boxing, ESPN boxing, Golden Boy boxing, which led to World Series of Poker, which then led to MrBeast.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of a quick history there.
And how did you get into the original, like the very first things that you were doing in the industry? How did you decide that you were going to get into the wireless video? And
Oh yeah, my dad worked there.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Dad's got a job there, and he's like, "Hey, you want a job for $12 an hour?" I'm like, "Yes." Yeah, $12 an hour in '99. I'm like, I don't know what I'll do with all this money. You know, I'm like, this is as much money as I need to make for the rest of my life. You know, I'm set. You know, because you're single, got no kids, and no bills. So, and also things were really inexpensive in '99.
Right.
The golden age. But
That's when gas was like $1, huh?
So my wife's gonna kill me for telling this story because this is my boomer story, right? Like, when I filled up to move to California in 1999 in January, I paid 82 cents a gallon in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So that's how cheap gas was in 1999.
Yeah, I think you probably, when you got to California, you probably weren't too far from $1 even there.
It was $1.
Back then.
Like, I was outraged at the $1.30 I had to pay in California. I mean, I think that's almost twice as much. Right? I mean, it's only that we'd kill for $1.30 gas now, but I was like, this is absurd.
I'm fairly certain we pay more than $1.30 in taxes
Oh,
on
yeah.
gas now.
100%,
Right? Oh
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
brutal. It's brutal. So you came to California in '99, and that's when it all got started?
Yeah, so I did the wireless video stuff, and then, you know, we were security, Department of Defense type stuff for wireless video, and the other half of the company was film and TV. So I kind of had my feet in both, and so, but I just kind of got more, because, you know, getting into government stuff isn't something you just get hired in for, right? So I never really was able to get a foot in the door on that side. But on the TV side, if they like you, that's really the qualification, you know, and they're like, "Oh, we like working with you. You should come do more stuff with us." It's like, well, I don't know how to do that. That's okay.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. So, yeah, it just kind of one thing. I didn't set out at like 8 years old, like, I'm going to be in film and TV. I was like, oh, there's a lot of money here. So,
What was your childhood like? What did you think that you were going to do when you quote unquote grew up?
I was ADHD my whole life. And so I was just worried about graduating high school, you know? So, I barely graduated high school.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, I failed out of college first semester. They're like, oh, you're on academic probation. I'm like,
What does that mean?
what does that
I'm done.
mean? Yeah. Oh, you don't get money for school anymore. Well, I guess I'm done, you know? So, but yeah, it just became like, just find fun ways to make money is kind of what I was like. I've got ADHD. I have no ability to do things I'm not interested in. And once I stopped trying to fit in and just did what I enjoyed, I started making money. And I was just like, that's the goal. Just find something you like doing that pays the bills, and life is much better. Whether it doesn't have to be big, it just needs to be enjoyable. You know?
Right.
So
Right. Something you don't hate.
exactly.
At least, right?
And then sometimes you start hating it after 4 years, and you're like, oh, I'll go do something else. And that's just kind of been the story of my life. But TV has kind of come in and out of it because there's always something different to do. I've done commercial, like feature, short form, live esports, live fighting sports, now YouTube videos, now X influencing, you know, so it's just like whatever's interesting.
And now that you're involved with X influencing, is that something that you think you're going to keep doing for a long time? Do you love it?
I do love it. You know, it's not something, I mean, I guess it's something you can make a living doing. They pay people pretty decently. But for me, it's just recognizing that I can give people that don't have a voice, and just seeing a lot of people feel hopeless, but then see their stories told and then see them get help. That's pretty addicting, you know, to be able to help people in a real tangible way. Just the amount of messages I get. I got a message yesterday from a guy that was the person who we're building a house for a lady in Western North Carolina, literally paying for the whole thing. I think
so cool.
actually Mercury One charity is forcing us to split the cost with them, you know. So I guess I'll let JP Decker help us. But yeah, so he sent a message on LinkedIn. He was her ADP rep, and he had saw my post on LinkedIn because I'm cross-platforming, and then she wasn't on any social media. He went to her because he knew she had lost her house and said, "You need to reach out to this guy." And he's like, "Here's the link to his form for help." So here we are, posting on LinkedIn, posting on X, and all of a sudden we're getting a lady a new house because of it. You know, so I'm like, okay, this feels good. This feels valuable and worthy of spending I mean, we all get 24 hours a day, right? We don't get it back. We don't get any more of it. And how you spend it, you know, you should treasure it more than money. You really should. And so this is a way I can spend my time helping people and doing something I enjoy, which is helping people. So,
Have you ever done mentoring?
other than just like you know, mentoring, I've done. Like I look at anybody when I build teams at work. My goal is to make people better than me, right? And so as soon as I get any kind of role, I look for the person who's like 10 times better than me at it, and then I just give them the skills they need to shine. And so that's just a natural part of who I am, is helping people really achieve what they're setting out to achieve. And I'm 47 years old. I've been around for a while. So I'm working with guys in their 20s. I can help point them down a path. Like, don't make these mistakes. Don't, you know, here's some tips. And so I love building teams and helping people. So.
And what's your main message to those people? It sounds like it might be figure out what you love.
Yeah. I again, figure out what you love doing. And that'll deal with a lot of issues, right? And then don't be afraid to take chances. I think I probably played it way too conservative my entire life. Didn't take enough risk, and now I can take more risk because I'm financially stable. But it's like I probably should have taken more risk. I probably got financially stable earlier if I had taken more risk earlier. But hey, I had kids. You can only risk so much. Everybody's different. But you risk a lot, you win a lot, and don't be afraid of failure. I think a lot of my life I was afraid of failing because I worried about what people would think of me. And instead of just taking the risk and learning from failure. And that's one thing, a guy that really mentored me was, he was always like, say the hard things up front, right? Learn from your mistakes, be coachable, you know. And so that was just something that I really took to heart, is like, just go out there and swing for it. If you miss, yeah, people are gonna be disappointed in the moment. But when you hit that home run, they'll never remember the shot you missed, right? So, yeah, I guess that's the advice. Do what you love and take risk.
Do you remember any big misses of your own?
Well, when we were doing esports, some of my buddies went off to start a company that we called Twitch. And I didn't want to move to San Francisco. Not interested, guys. Well, they're probably doing a lot better than I am right now. But again, it's money, you know, and I didn't want to live in San Francisco.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was probably a big swing and a miss, you know.
Twitch turned out to be pretty big.
I helped found an esports company that I walked away from too soon because I wanted to leave LA and move to Vegas. So I had the World Series of Poker opportunity come up, but I cashed out of my esports business and would go on to sell to Viacom. So, but I'm still friends with those guys. They're all doing great, and I'm doing great. So, but again, like if I had hit those shots though, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now.
And
right?
if you weren't willing to take those shots,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
then you definitely wouldn't be. Like you said, you're a risk taker and you're gonna miss
Yeah.
sometimes when you take risks. But I think that the biggest miss is when it's too late and you're
Yeah.
like, I didn't take any risks and here I am, and it's like I lived this boring life, and you know, maybe I didn't get to spend the time the way that I wanted to.
That's true. I mean, you definitely, as you get into your close to 50, like you reflect on things, right? And so, but I think it's never too late to stop doing what you love and finding purpose, right? Like, so as a believer, right? Like, my purpose is much bigger than myself, right? Like, it's like my goal is to point people to Christ, right? And so that's fine. That's just what I want to do, but it's a bigger purpose, and so it helps when you. I guess as a person, like you'll find like a hole in your heart, right? And you're trying to fill that with something. And for me, it was God. And then recognizing that God's mission's a lot bigger than just showing up on Sunday. Like, we're actually supposed to go out and help people. You know, we're actually supposed to go out and be the hands and the feet. We're supposed to actually go out and serve and give sacrificially. And I think when I stopped holding on to my money so tightly, and hold on to my security and started being generous, is when everything opened up. So it's never too late to start down that path of helping others, no matter where you're at. And I can't remember who said it. He's like, if you're struggling with sin, you're not seriously serving the church. And he's just talking about how service is like at the core of it. And so when I started serving and started giving sacrificially, and like instead of having a tight fist with my money, I had an open hand with it. I've never had to worry. We don't live lavishly, but we're provided for, and I've never had to worry about that. And I've always been, even with Hurricane Helene, I was out of money. I'm like, I've spent all I can spend, and I posted a video where I'm struggling with this because like I feel like I couldn't accept the generosity of others, and that's what it boiled down to. And so I basically made a video and I said, hey, if you want to help, here's my Venmo, and it just blew up. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? This is incredible. And I realized that, and a friend of mine who's a pastor told me, he said, if you can't receive from others, how can you receive the gift of eternal life from God? Right? I was like, oh, he's like, you are robbing those people. The Bible says it's blessed to be a blessing. And you are robbing them of their ability to be a blessing. And that just wrecked me to my soul. I realized that like, I was kind of making it about me. Like I'm the one doing this. And so as soon as I let others get involved and let them be a blessing, it changed my outlook. So like when a lady offers me a hamburger at a first responder station and I say, oh, no, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to take this hamburger because there's probably other people who have eaten. Like, no, she's wanting to bless you with food. Take it. Let her have the joy of being a blessing as well. Mm-hmm. And so it just changed my mind of like, we should all help each other. And so that's where you find true purpose in my mind.
Yeah, and man, finding purpose is so important, and so many people struggle with it. For me, it's been family and raising my family. And I think, I don't call it God in the same way that you do, but that same purpose of helping others and just like generally being a good person is so important. When you open that up, though, you said that if you're struggling with sin, right? So has leaning into that helped you to not feel like you're struggling with sin? I mean, I don't feel like I've ever completely eliminated a struggle with sin at any point in my life.
Nor can we, right? Right? We're human, right? It is our condition. So let's just put it this way, idle hands, right? Like when you're busy serving and helping and focused on God, let's say selfishness tends to go away when you see people suffering. Pride tends to go away when you see that the problems are so much bigger than yourself, right? Gluttony goes away when you see others that don't have enough food to eat. When you're serving the church, you see the damage that you can do in pride and selfishness and narcissism, and you see it in others. You're just more aware of like how much better it is for you and your soul to be good, right? And to do good. And so when you see that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're not sitting there thinking about yourself, right? And the biggest enemy to, I think, happiness is false expectations, right? And so entitlement, yeah. Lack of thankfulness. Like my daughter is one of the most thankful people I know. I could bring her a bottle cap home when she was a kid. Here's your bottle cap. She'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, it's like joy from receiving a gift, And so
I love that.
When you're out giving, you find true fulfillment. And again, for me, it's biblical principles, but it's interesting how the Bible applies to us. Like, even if you don't believe in what I believe, if you look at the principles of loving your neighbor, loving one another, bearing each other's burdens, like, nobody should disagree with those. Like, we don't have to follow the same book to say we should love one another, we should help one another, we should give sacrificially to make sure we all don't suffer, and to care for the widow, care for the child, care for the orphan. Those things are fundamentally should be human identities that we all agree with. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, 100%. So the way that I think about that is aligning your own selfishness with the needs of others, right? Like you said it, you feel good when you help those people. You're no longer gluttonous when you see someone that doesn't have enough food to eat, right? So if you know that that's how you're gonna feel, you're gonna be a better person, you're gonna feel better if you help these other people, then you can align your own selfish needs. But you have to realize that about yourself. And I think most people, their goals are not to help someone else so that they feel better. They don't think that if they're a really good person and they don't tell lies and they help their neighbor and whatever, that's what's gonna make them feel fulfilled. They think if they get the fancy car and the big house and a white picket fence or whatever else, and it's like, I've been telling people my whole life, like, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Who cares?
I don't care how much money I die with. I want to know how many people remember that I was able to help them, right? And I'm just saying, I'd rather people say, oh, he helped me this, like, oh, 30 years ago he helped me with this, 40 years ago he helped me with this. No, I don't want people like, well, he died with an incredible net worth that his kids are fighting over.
He had a really nice pool.
He had a really nice pool, yeah. Did you see his car? Guy had an awesome car, you know, and I'm laying there in a casket. You know, I'd much rather know that I left a mark of being able to help and leading people towards God, you know, because I do think fundamentally that people are better off with religion, not religion, this is a terrible word, like this spirituality, but obviously for me, I'm not going to prescribe it. I don't believe that I can save people, right? That's not in my ability. It is on God's ability. But I can go out and be a good witness. I can be out and be a good example, right? And so that's between you and God. Like, I have no ability to talk you into religion or spirituality or anything, right? That's something that you will come through in your own way, but I can go out and live what I believe to be true. And so, but yeah, it's a lot.
Were you ever a bad kid? Did you find religion later in life? What was it like to go through that transition? And let's talk a little bit about like young Shawn.
Young Shawn was terrible. Just hated school, ADHD, fight with my parents, you know. I've got, I wasn't a bad kid, right? But just a tough kid. And, you know, just school, I just couldn't bring myself to sit and do the boring work that I knew I already understood. I would score high on my test, but the homework was 0. So I basically have a D, even though I had like 98% on the test. And it was just infuriating to me that I had to do work that I already knew how to do because of your rule set, right? And so...
We had the same childhood, brother.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of us that are wired that way that did. And for me, I was told I had a disease. I was told something wrong with me. Here, take this medicine, right? And it made me manageable. So
that's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted, yeah. And so when I recognized that being wired that way is just being different, and I don't need to fit into the fishbowl of normalcy, that people like us have a gifting that's outside. It's not better than, it's just different than. And so, but schools are designed for one type of person. And if you fit outside of that, you're punished for it. And so, but yeah, I just did what I wanted to do. And like I said, no, it wasn't a troublemaker, but I also didn't fall into like, oh, he's a good kid, he got great grades. You know, I was just a good kid who barely graduated from school. I think I had a 2.1 GPA or something. It was like 133rd in the class out of like 140. And so, but, you know, loved outdoors, loved riding motorcycles, fishing, hunting, loved fast cars, you know, did a lot of street racing, which is probably the edgiest thing I did. But I lost my brother at 20. He killed himself.
Oh, wow. And
so that pushed me to California. So that was kind of what got me out of the Oklahoma area. I had to leave. And I was pretty angry with God at that point. I'd been brought up in the church my whole life. And so what church became to me, and I'm not blaming anybody for this, it's just what I took from it, was a series of rules from a vengeful God that if you didn't follow would send you into a pit of fire, right? I was taught to follow, or I heard, follow God, love God, or you will be punished, which seems like a terrible message, right? And it is a terrible message.
Honestly, if it wasn't for exactly that part of the message, I might be more religious than I am.
Right. But it really, I don't want to get too deep theologically, but it's it's more of a separation from God, a lack of existence, more than it is like, oh, so the only response, if you truly understand who God is and understand what he did for us, is to follow, right? And out of love, because, he loved us first. And so for me, I'm like, how can I follow God and let my brother die? But that's my brother's choice. And that's a hard thing to like say, right? And so there was many years of anger at my brother, at God, at really everything. You want to fight? I'll fight. You know what I mean? So
I was getting in fights around that age
yeah,
too.
and so it's just like one reason I moved to California is just somebody knew what I'd gone through. They'd use it to trigger me, and then you're in the back of a police car. And of course back then they just let you go and knock it off. These days everybody's in jail for the rest of their life. But it was just it was a tough place, so I left to go to California. But what it looked like was one day waking up on a Sunday and telling my wife I want to go to church with her, and she'd been praying for me, and it's just like, gosh, I don't know why, I just felt like I wanted to go. And then when I got there, Pastor Brian, it's a church in Santa Clarita, California, he's preaching through the Gospel of Luke, and I sat there and I was just like, why is he talking to me? I felt like everyone else in there was just wasting their time. And just for 12 weeks, I was just like, this is not okay. Like every time I get in there, I'm like, he's only talking to me. Like, why is he focusing on me right now? Like everything he called out, I'm like,
That's me.
Can we stop with this? Does everybody else know? And, but yeah, I heard the gospel for the first time and the truth of what it was. And it's not weakness. It's weakness of humankind, but strength through God. It was, there's a bigger mission. It's not just show up on church on Sundays. It's like, go and love sacrificially. Like, there's no, like, vengeance is the Lord, judgment is the Lord, revenge is the Lord. Like, you just have to worry about loving your neighbor. It doesn't matter what they vote, what they believe in, what they, who they choose to marry, what they choose to smoke. Like, that's not you to judge. So the whole idea of a judgmental Christian is like, blows my mind. Now, granted, I've plenty of judgment and I struggle with that, but I know at least fundamentally I'm called against that. So it's like, this is go love me, love others. And that's like the focus of the New Testament. And I don't know anybody who's unhappy, who loves others, who serves others. And so I always tell people, like, even if you're not into the Bible, take some of the principles and apply it in your life and see if you feel better. Treat it as a self-help book and see what happens. Go read it and see what happens. Because I'm not going to argue anybody. I'm not going to my neighbor who's, whatever, and argue them into faith. It's something that they have to experience. And so for me, it was just recognizing that, like, this is not about me. And as soon as the world's not about you and you're not the king and God of your world, the pressure goes away to be God, right? When you let someone else be God and you're just there to love and live and know that you're fully taken care of, like, it's an easy yoke. It even says in the Bible, my yoke is easy, right? But I think so many times we take that and we say, I've got to judge others. The yoke becomes heavy for people because they take on the responsibility of God instead of literally laying it at the foot of the cross and saying, I'm called to go love others. And that's the thing I just tell people, just go love and see what happens. And I think you'll be surprised.
Speaking of love, was your wife with you when you moved from Oklahoma to California? Or
I
did
met
you meet
her in California.
Okay, in
Yeah,
Santa Clarita?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a Cali girl who wanted no more to leave that state. And so for years I kept her there, but she just wanted to go back and have a farm, so, and that's what we have now. We have a farm and we're getting set back up. It's got interrupted because I got pulled into the beast world. I'd already built a farm back in my hometown of Oklahoma. And then now I'm out here in North Carolina, which I like much better. And now we're building a farm in North Carolina.
Okay, so you had started the farm and then
Yes.
got called in.
Yeah, so in the 100-day circle, I'm like laying there, I'm like, I'm going to make my farm like a Tesla. And my farm is, I've got probably one of the biggest solar systems in Oklahoma on my farm in Oklahoma. It's 3 power walls effectively. Everything's electric. We have zero need for outside inputs, right? I mean, we're fully self-sufficient. And we've got 2 creeks, 3 ponds, spring-fed pond, got a hand-dug well. Like it's the prepper's property, storm cellar.
I know where I'm going if the shit hits the fan.
And by the way, it's for sale right now. So if you're interested in buying 75 acres in Oklahoma, hit me up. So yeah, we just put it on the market.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So I need to sell it so I can build my house in North Carolina.
Yeah, I saw like some of the videos that you posted of your land in North Carolina and you getting started with all that.
Yep.
That sounds like super fun. So now this is your second time doing it though. So
It is.
like
Doing it much better.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Joe Salatin. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Polyface Farms, big food freedom guy.
Okay.
They leaned into him with the Trump administration to talk about food freedom. I've actually got a shirt that says everything I want to do is illegal. And it's his shirt, but talk about like, if I want to sell you meat, oh, no. It has to go through the King's processing facility, right? It's literally talking like medieval Europe type stuff. In medieval Europe, you could grow wheat, but you will have your hand cut off if you grind your own flour. It must be ground at the king's mill, and he'll take the king's tithes. And that is literally how we're set up right now. If I want to sell you meat as my neighbor, it is illegal unless I have it done through a state-inspected process. You're getting me off on food freedom now. We'll be 2 hours on this topic. But, and I remember what we're talking about. Oh, so I hired Joel's son, Daniel, to basically advise us on how to build the farm. So this time I have a little more funding and we have better land because Oklahoma's a terrible place to farm apparently. It's very, very brutal weather-wise. And so we did better fencing. We have like a strategy going into this where before I was just like, we'll figure it out as we go. And so we built a great farm for ranching, and for hunting. Oh my gosh, my property in Oklahoma, massive bucks that go across the back of it.
Oh, that's
so it's a great, rough, wild property, right? But when you got creeks running through your property, it's harder to fence. So as a piece of land to live on, wonderful, right? You get all the seasons, you get, all the advantages of running water. But then working it's a different story. But I'd love to be able to provide high quality food for people without the government being involved. And like, say I'm selling you high quality ground beef, eggs, milk, vegetables, and I'm selling to you at a premium. I'd love to even up that premium, give you the option to up that premium to where you're paying, say, 2 shares more than you would have. And then those shares go to the poorest, because I hate that the poor have no access to healthy food. Mm-hmm. Like, healthy food shouldn't be something just for the wealthy. And right now it very much is. And it's even hard for wealthy people to get healthy food. Oh, yeah. It's just like, try to get I only eat meat off of my farm in Oklahoma. Like, all the meat in our freezer comes from our farms in Oklahoma.
Lucky you.
Yeah, right? Try to do that. Even if you have money, where do you find that? You got to have it shipped in. Then you got to trust that person is actually doing what they say they do. Right. But imagine being able to buy, if we could make it feasible for the local farmer to farm again and to raise, you can come out to the farm and you can see what you're eating. You can see the land it's on. You can see that it's not sprayed. You can grab the pasture and just see the amazing healthy pasture that the animals are feeding on. Mm-hmm. What's the value of that to somebody? But somebody without finances will never afford that.
It feels almost like a national security issue too, right? I talk a lot about our lack of manufacturing capacity and what a big deal that is for our country. If we ever got into war with the country that does all the manufacturing for us, you really think they're going to send us that stuff to use? No, right? No shot. And I think the same goes for food. And I don't think anyone even knows where their food comes from, right? It says it on the label sometimes, but who even reads that? And it's all such garbage. And then most people aren't even cooking their own meals, right? So it's like they're going to McDonald's and then they really don't know where the food came from. And the thing
is like, I call it hollow food. Our food's hollow. Like, it's an orange, but there's just nothing inside of it, right? Because animals and trees don't make minerals, right? They don't make elements. If magnesium doesn't exist in the diet, there will not be magnesium in that fruit.
It has to be in the soil.
It has to be in the soil. It has to be in the feed. And so it's no joke, no wonder that farm fresh eggs are 700% more rich in vitamins, because they're eating bugs and insects, and they're on the field. And these what do they call it? Grass-fed beef. You know what they do? They bring in, treated grass crops, so they're sprayed with glyphosate. They mow it, put it onto trucks, and haul it into the feed barns. And so instead of feeding them leftover Skittles and junk, they just feed them grass. So it's like they're still stuck in a barn. They're still getting mass fed. And God knows what they're spraying on the grass crop to keep it, because trust me, weeds are a pain. It's so much easier to spray remedy or Roundup or whatever on your land and kill all the broadleaf. If you can spray, it kills only broadleaf is all it does. Grass will do fine. It kills that broadleaf, but I'm telling you, it's terrifying. When they spray the cotton fields, I can smell it in the air, and the next day, those fields are brown. I mean, they go from green. I mean, it is. The cotton has no regulation on it. Where do you buy organic cotton? I hate that they spray that stuff, but that's what we're up against. And it just burns the plant. And like, what is that doing to the environment and the soil? We let our soil sit for a year now, and it is amazing how fast it recovers.
Well, that's good news.
It's something we can fix. Like, we talk about global warming, right? Sure, I don't know about global warming to tell you if it's man-made or it's not man-made. All I know is the climate does change. It has for years. We've had ice ages, so I'm not surprised. Cool, call it climate change. That's nothing new. We've literally had ice ages, so obviously the climate changes. What the real threat is we only have like 40 harvests left of topsoil. Like, our food infrastructure is what we should be afraid of, right? If the food infrastructure collapses, you're talking 90% die-off. Way more risky than any kind of climate change. So, like, climate change, like, we're looking so far out in the future trying to fix it. And we have like imminent problems in our face that we're ignoring with the big, not big pharma, but big farm.
Hot or cold, if there's no nutrients in the soil, we're
matter,
not eating, right?
And if there's no soil, we can, because right now the way they till and spray, right? We grow plants in dirt. We don't grow plants in soil anymore. Soil grows plants naturally. Dirt doesn't. Dirt doesn't have the microbiome in it that soil does. It's just dead, inert dirt. And so what we do is we have to spray all the stuff into the soil to get the plants to grow. All the stuff that the plant needs.
All that it should have.
And it's externally brought in on trucks. It's brought in. So if something stops this system, there is no food. Yields go through the floor. And there's no fixing a yield fall, right? Like, once the yields fall, like, it's too late for that season. And if we have it happen multiple times, then we're really in trouble.
So you're almost going back to the old school, and you have your own farm now, and you eat your own meat and whatever. Have you spent any time thinking about like the modernization of farming, something like 3D hydroponic farming?
Oh, yeah.
Or is that something that you're interested in at all? Or
I mean, I have land, so hydroponics and like tall farming don't make sense for me because it's expensive and I have land.
Right.
So, but I think it's smart. So I'm a part of a charity called Here We Grow. And this was something we were starting before Hurricane Helene. Operation Shelter has become an initiative of Here We Grow.
Okay.
Yeah, so the website's thegrowsquad.org. And our whole thing is to re-educate the world on how to grow their own food. Because you don't need 67 acres to provide for yourself. You don't need even close to that. And who says you have to provide everything? What if you just had half your food, or even 15% of your food, bring real nutrients back into your diet? And so with Here We Grow, the whole idea is because what happened was our grandparents had to grow food to survive. And I grew up pretty low on the income scale. And so they canned, they grew, we hunt, my granddad fished. Like food was expensive. And it was a big part of your overall income. So it made sense to farm. But then food got so cheap, and it no longer made sense to farm anymore. It made no sense to have a garden. It's blown away people with land that don't grow their own food. And you see it all over when you drive around, like these beautiful houses with just perfect yards. Like you could literally...
They're already paying for a gardener.
Yeah, you're already paying for the water and that's fertilizer. And but then your grandparents taught your parents, but then your parents bought store-bought food, and canned goods were 49 cents for a can of green beans. Like, that's pretty hard to compete with. By the time I grow them, clean them, snap them, put them in a jar, can them, put them on the shelf, 49 cents gone pretty fast.
Even your own time is going to end up being
Exactly,
worth more than that,
exactly.
right? Forget about any of the
Yeah,
ingredients or
and
whatever.
so there's been a big skill gap. You know, I was in the circle growing potatoes, microgreens. You know, I had a whole garden out front in the circle. I was growing tomatoes, and I had this very wealthy billionaire come in just to visit me while I was in the circle, and he was, you know, he was blown away I could grow potatoes. You know, he's just blown. The most thing he was impressed with was I was growing my own food. This guy's worth, you know, a ton of money. And we talked for like 45 minutes on how to grow food. And I just realized, like, growing food shouldn't seem like magic to people, right? So I realized then, almost 3 years ago, that I was like, how is this magic? You know, this was like, he was just, how did you know how to do this? You know, and so I was like, we need to educate people how to grow their own food. Because if we have some sort of collapse, some kind of major conflict, a war, some kind of global conflict, some kind of global pandemic, you know, like we have so many cases of having issues like this, but nobody's prepared for it. And so who cares if you bought a seed vault and you got that sitting in your thing? Oh, I'm a prepper. What do you
know how to grow it?
Do you know how to grow it? Like, do you understand like what signs a plant leaf tells you what's going on in it? You know, like you have to do these skills. And so Here We Grow is trying to like go out, especially we really focus on people that don't have the money to do it, right? Community gardens, urban gardens, because you know the people who have the financial ability can go on YouTube, can start gardening tomorrow. There's nothing stopping them other than their desire and time. But there are a lot of people who don't make a lot of money who would love to grow their own food and just don't know where to start or have the means to get started. So that's, and then obviously, in our view, if you don't have shelter, well, gardening doesn't make much sense either. So we started Operation Shelter so that we could basically start helping people in Western North Carolina. But once we're done there, I want to go back to all those people we got stable again and then get them go from stable to self-sufficient.
Do you spend any time when you're helping people sorting through which are the most worthy? So like when you talk about helping the poor,
Yeah.
some people put themselves in that position.
That's right. Yep.
And some people ran into some rough times.
Yep.
And throughout my life, I've struggled with, you know, I always want to help everyone, but you only have so much energy and time and resources. And if I spend my time trying to help a lost cause, then I'm not helping someone who could better use my time.
Help
right?
those who want to be helped.
Yeah, right. But and who help themselves, I would add to that, right?
Of course.
So is that something that you ever struggle with, or do you just kind of see need and again you let God handle who deserves it? Like what's your approach there?
We're supposed to be good stewards, right? So God does handle it, right? In Scripture it says like, you know, you need to steward things. So if I've got a guy who's addicted to drugs, right, and I give him money, was that good stewardship of that money? No. So God's already handled it. God's already given us a blueprint for exactly how to help people, you know, and we're.
But if you give him food,
Yeah,
or teach him how to cook it, make his
cook
food,
it, yeah. Or better yet, point him towards rehab, right? Like, point out that like the reason you're here, you have to look in the mirror, right? And self-accountability. I don't get into this blaming other stuff. Like it's always us. I mean, yeah, we all have reasons things happen to us, but at the end of the day, you can only change your life. No one else can do it for you. And so point people to rehab. I'm not going to take a guy who's strung out on drugs and put him up in an RV, start paying for his food so that he can just get blasted out of his mind. You know, so at Operation Shelter, we specifically focus on families and elderly.
Okay.
You know, sorry, but if, you know, your house got flooded, you're just you, like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to point you. I'm going to say, hey, you can go serve here. They'll put you up. They got lodging for volunteers. You're a healthy man. You can work. And we're not really dealing with that. I don't have a lot of healthy guys coming in asking for help.
Because they're mostly doing
They
that
mostly
already.
take care of themselves,
Right.
right? But when you got a mom who is, you know, 7 months pregnant, I mean, she just had her baby. She just sent me a picture. So, whose whole life got washed away, and she has 4 kids, and the husband had just lost his job. Like, that's who we want to help. You know, we want to help everyone, but helping people looks different in every case. But that family is warm, dry, and safe because of what we did and what the people who donated did. And we had another family that was a man who got shot. no fault of his own. So now he struggles with just existing. He was the provider for his 4 teenage boys. And one of them was going to be, he was amazing at sports. And I'm going to be vague because I don't want to, dox him. But, and he was on like a path to go to college. It's just like this first in their family's history. But do you think this kid, if he was they were living under a tarp in hay after the storm. Like, they lost everything. And do you think this kid would have had a chance at a scholarship if he was underfed, underslept, living under a tarp through this winter? No shot. So, like, our ability to come in changed the trajectory of his life for the rest of his life, and who knows about generations to come. Mm-hmm. That's how we want to help. I had another lady who's just about to finish school and become a teacher and be able to afford everything, but she's got like this next 5 months to go. And, she just needs to get through it. But the place she was renting got washed away. She doesn't, now rents are through the roof. You need first and last month. She never got her deposit back. So now she's effectively homeless, and she's going to have to drop out of school right before she could become a teacher. And all we had to do was pay for 5 months at $600 a month for an apartment, and rehab it. We rehabbed it for the owner in exchange for the lower rent. He's like, I got a place, but it needs some work. Like, what if we do the work? Will you give us reduced rent rate? So again, we helped him, we helped her, but that was good stewardship, right? That was good use of money versus just spending it because it feels good, right?
So your approach is to solve problems as opposed to give money generally.
Yeah. We don't give money. That's one thing we don't do. I have handed cash out here and there because it was a vetted person. That was what we needed to do. Credit card, internet's down, whatever it was. But like, if you come to me with a problem, I had a guy reach out. He needs a forklift at their disaster center because they're getting these truckloads of stuff and they don't have a forklift to offload it. I'm like, what's it cost to rent one? He says $4,800 a month. What's it cost to buy one? They're $49,000. And so it's like, okay, so you need it for a year. So now I'm working with some charities to possibly provide this charity a forklift because they don't have the same exposure we do. Right? I've got a network, so I can say, we can put $50,000 into this charity and enable them to offload quickly truckloads of goods. I'm talking about building material, stuff we need, plywood, and this is heavy stuff, so we can't just use anything to offload it. We got places that are like, we will donate this stuff, but you have to be able to take it off the trucks when it gets there. And so $50,000, the first truck it unloads pays for itself.
Oh, that's wild.
Right? I mean, a whole truckload of lumber?
Yeah.
I get a few sticks on the back of my trailer and it's $500. So again, like, smart deployment of funds. And I look at everything through a stewardship lens of, especially since somebody has entrusted us with this money. Like, this has come from people have spent their life force earning this money to then give it to us. Like, I am going to steward it well. And our government should do the same with our tax money, but they don't. But you know what I mean? Like, if the government stewarded the money like it was their own, we would have a lot less problems.
I think it's so cool as someone who can give that when they give to you, they see the updates that you post on your page, so you can kind of see where it's going. Whereas if you give to like a bigger charity,
right, Red Cross,
it's like, well, where did that go exactly? I don't know. Did they?
I know where
did
it
they
went.
Help anyone?
It went to the head of Red Cross's $800,000 a year salary. The guy right below him makes $650,000. I was outside their headquarters yesterday. I didn't even know this. They have a 3.5-acre complex across the street from the White House. Did you know that?
No.
Go look it up. That Red Cross National HQ is across the street from the White House on the Civil War Memorial property that's been given to them apparently by the U.S. government. But yet we get zero transparency of how that money is being spent. I didn't go out there to start that fight. I was walking by and I was like, why is the Red Cross picture? It's like, this is a museum to the Red Cross or something, And so I'm like looking at my phone. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And I just went down the bunny trail the last 2 days. So, because we didn't see, and I want them to prove me wrong. I was there for 4 months. I saw one Red Cross person. I saw a Samaritan's Purse everywhere. And I just feel like that, back to showing the receipts. Show the receipts. What did you do up here? Like, we're only 4% cleaned up. Where did the millions Fox News raise for you go? Where did the 12 million Lowe's raise for you go? And I'll be humbled to be proven wrong. I'll be joyful to be proven wrong. I would love for the Red Cross to come out like, listen here, you little punk.
This
we
is
spent
what
it
we
here,
did.
here, and here, and here. And guess what? We were on the other side of the mountain. That's why you didn't see us. We rebuilt the whole town over there. Like, praise God.
Pretty
I'm
please.
wrong.
Red Cross, you hear that?
I'm wrong, and I apologize. And I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. I just want to know what they're doing.
Right.
And so since I knew that going into this, and I was so self-aware of receiving money that I started showing the receipts because I didn't know what, it just seemed natural to me. Like I never wanted to be called out. And so I just started, I share receipts with anybody. And then I would say, more importantly, we just show the work. Who cares that I spent $7,000 at Lowe's? I realized, like, if they don't see where that stuff went. I mean, I could have spent $1,000 at Lowe's. Hey guys, 7,000 Lowe's, and literally turned the camera off and went and returned it all.
Right, or bring it to your house.
Or bring it to my house, yeah, right. And so I was like, they need to see the people, they need to hear the stories of the people that are helping. And then I realized that it helps raise more money as well.
I was going to say, like, I'm not as tempted to give to the Red Cross because I don't see the results. Whereas if you see someone get a new house when they need one, that's
I'm
wild.
talking to my guy on the way up here, Terry, we rebuilt his driveway. And he said that he had so many people show up and no one came back. And he thought that we wouldn't come back because we were just because it's a hard job. We had to do a water redirection project, right? This isn't just throw gravel on a road. The Helene created a new creek through his driveway.
Oh, wow.
Right? So if you don't fix that, then you don't.
There is
that
no
means
driveway.
Excavators, that means culverts, that means civil engineering, that means getting a laser out, finding out where the water's coming from. That means dealing with neighbors, saying, hey, we need to do some work on your property. Dealing with the lower neighbors, like, hey, we're about to dump a ton of water on your property. Like, are you okay if we work on your property as well? They're like, absolutely. So we cleaned out all their gutters and fixed their water right of way. So we got the water off these properties and back out to the road. And but that's only possible because I needed a $4,000 a week excavator, a $1,600 a week mini skid. I need 2 skilled contractors. We need, we put over 170 tons of gravel in. And so like I haven't put the video out yet, but I have a video of Terry just talking about how like no one would help. And it's not the government's problem. It's not, because it's private property. So, but the government took money, called it federal emergency management. So that is their problem now, right? But then, so
it becomes a problem when you say it's your problem.
When you take money out of my paycheck to do emergency management, I'm going to expect you to do emergency management. And I don't care that it's a disaster zone. I don't care that it's a private bridge. Now, granted, they've already fixed that. Trump's been in office for a week, and they said that they're going to help work on private roads and bridges. That was a big thing we were working on, was private roads and bridges. But I worry that people are going to go, oh, the government's got it again. We shouldn't trust the government, right? The government changes every 4 years. So right now, FEMA's doing the right thing. Just remember that us small organizations, we're doing the right thing the whole time, right? And we will continue to do so, but I worry everybody's going to be like, oh, FEMA's got it. I don't have to help anymore. And they do, maybe, and I hope so. But what happens in 4 years if things change?
Right.
What happens in 8 years? We were all trusting FEMA for the last 8 years, so none of us are prepared, and then administration changes, and they're back to just doing nothing. And so I guess the message is like, if we want the government to do less, we have to do more, and that comes from Mercury One. That's their tagline. And I think that, us on the ground can respond faster than even a Trump-led organization can't respond as fast as your neighbor.
Right.
And even one below that is expect a self-rescue. So we should personally be prepared, especially if you have a means. If you have the means to personally prepare, if you'll prep, even for 3 to 4 weeks, it doesn't have to be doomsday prep or zombie apocalypse, right? If you have 3 to 4 weeks of food, water, generator, Starlink, right? Even if you don't have your Starlink turned on, spend $600, throw it in the closet. You can turn it on once you need it. It's a monthly thing. It's not a contract. Throw that in the closet, and all of a sudden, you're the guy that helps your neighbors. And then if the people that have the means to prep are prepped, us first responders can go focus on those that didn't have the means, the people who are already hurting. And so when we're saving rich people, middle-class people that could have prepped, it dilutes us from saving those who are the most needy of us all, right? And I'm not saying, this is not a class warfare thing by all means. This is just saying, hey, if you got the money, it is good for you to be prepared. And Helene showed us that. The Palisades fire showed us that. Katrina showed us that. It's not like I need to say this is coming. This has been here, and it's happened many, many times before, and it's not going to stop happening.
It's just a personal responsibility thing, right?
Agreed.
If we don't want big government,
Right.
and they've proven to us over and over again that the bigger they get, the more inefficient they get and the more problems they cause.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah, so if that's true, the only way that we solve it is by taking that responsibility back, right?
Yes.
And it feels a lot to me like too many people are fighting against that, right? Like we want to offload as much responsibility
Sure.
as we can.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do nothing and just depend on the government for everything, but that hasn't turned out so well.
And it never will. It never will.
So the circle,
Yeah.
the Beast Circle. You said you were working for the World Series of Poker.
Yep.
You were managing their broadcasts or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you said Jimmy approached you to join the circle. How did you know Jimmy?
I didn't know Jimmy. What's interesting is the way they look for subscribers. You have to know the channel, and so when they do a video, they basically say like, hey, we're looking for people to do a video, and somebody knew me, and was like, this guy would be good in your video, and gave him my number.
No way.
Yeah, and so I got a call. I was standing there and just like I didn't even believe who it was, and I wasn't going to do it because he didn't tell me what it was. And so I was like, I'm busy. I'm building this farm. I don't have time. But hey, big fan. I love this video. Kids love you. Can I put you on speakerphone with my kids? And guys, I'm talking to MrBeast. My kids are like,
No, you're not,
you're
Dad.
not. Like, they really didn't say anything afterwards. Like, oh my God, it was real. They freak out after the fact. But he told him, he's like, you need to bully your dad into coming out here. And of course, they just start losing it. Right. And so, yeah, it was well played. But I flew
Good
out
job,
there that
Jimmy.
night. And shortly after, they would pitch me the idea and called the wife and was like, you're not going to believe this. When I called my boss and told him I had to quit, I think he was very angry because I think I was lying to him. Now he knows it's true. But at the moment, he's just like, dude, just be a man and quit. You don't have to make up this wild story, And so, because it's a big risk, I had to give up a job to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so.
I mean, a seemingly pretty cool job.
Oh yeah, very cool job. Yeah. But yeah, it was. That's the biggest thing is that it's real. Like the videos they do, it's like they told me they're like you can break the rules. Like you have one rule you can't break, and that is do not touch that red circle. He's like, I can't fix that. He's like, you can play the game, you can try to get talent to do whatever, but if you touch that red circle, we will see it. We got cameras everywhere. The video is over. There's no fixing it. Do you understand? I'm like, I understand. So I did not leave that circle for 100 days. That's why I love people who are like, yeah, this is, they go to my video and they'll make a video about how like my hair was different or whatever. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I did not like, you know what I mean? Like they just, it's so crazy. People have too much time on their hands.
There was more humidity in the air that day, okay?
Yeah, right. Or just the wild theories. But I was like, my butt did not leave that circle for 100 days. I know for a fact. My kids know for a fact.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the first 3 days were the worst because I was having like this out of body experience. I'd wake up not quite sure that I was in reality. Like, why am I here? And I'm like, it's like your body's struggling to understand why this is happening to you. And then I got really paranoid. I was like, this is a trick. There's no way they're actually gonna keep me for 100 days. That's too expensive. You know what it costs to have all these people here and the cameras and all the footage? Like, I'm a TV guy. I know what it takes to make this show. And I was like, they're just tricking me. They're gonna make me look bad. As these punk kids are gonna play a prank on me. Where's the cameras in the bathroom?
Right.
So
Right.
I got like hyper paranoid, and then I don't know, the David Goggins mindset kicked in and was like, I was giving myself reasons to quit. I realized because I was afraid of failing publicly, and I even say it in the video, public failures. And he's like, they don't even listen to me outside the trailer. I'm like, you idiots, But I was afraid of failing publicly. I realized, and that was what I was afraid of because I'd be known as the guy who failed the MrBeast challenge, right? And it's spoilers, I won. But if you haven't watched it, it's been 3 years ago. That's on you. What got me to get in shape, and I need to get back in shape. I've gained so much weight during this hurricane, but was David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And he talks about the quitting mind. And I realized was in the quitting mind, that my mind had already quit the challenge. And once it quits, it's hard to get it back, right? Once your mind quits, your body has way more in it than your mind does. And I recognized it as the quitting mind, and I turned it, and I was like, I will die before I leave this circle, and so the rest of it was just routine, get up, do the same thing. I lost 33 pounds when I was in there.
What a gift.
Yeah, I know. Food was terrible. It was like Survivor food. That taught me a lot about prepping, right? Because I was basically living the prepped lifestyle. I only had what was in the circle with me for 100 days. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the best educations. I may be one of the more educated people on prepping because I lived it for 100 days straight. Guess what? Don't buy 89 bags of rice cakes because they will start sucking about bag 27 and your body will reject them at bag 35. Just like, ugh, I can't even eat this.
Wow.
Beans,
Even if you're hungry.
Even if you're hungry, yeah. Beans, terrible survival food. Yeah.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. Because your body can't process a bean very well, and so you start eating beans 3-4 meals a day, you are going to know it, and so you just learn a lot when you live off, packaged food for 100 days. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of reduced my calories to like 1,800 a day. I would write all my calories on the wall, right? So I would track my calories, eat 1,800 calories a day, and go figure, calorie deficit causes you to lose weight. And so, yeah, I lost 32 pounds, got super flexible. I'd stretch every day. I need to get back to it. I used to stretch every day for an hour. It was wonderful. I slept 12 hours a night. Oh my gosh. I was like, what else am I going to do? I'd go to bed at 8 o'clock. Guess I'll go to bed. And so, but yeah, but I learned to make a lot of content. I learned to talk to a camera. Because I was the only one in there filming. They were filming me from the outside, these are static cameras, but I had to do all my vlogging and stuff. I watched a lot of Casey Neistat before I went in. I watched a lot of because I realized I could be vlogging for 100 days. I had no skill in that. So shout out to Casey, the guy's the GOAT when it comes to vlogging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the 100 days and getting out, man. That was just the craziest feeling. They had me in my room the whole time. I'm just sitting on these egg crates with a mattress on it because that's all I had left after they destroyed the house. It's only a room that held wouldn't let water come into it, right? And so I basically had bunkered into this one little room in the back of the house. It was originally my little workout room because everything else was destroyed. When it rained, water would still run into my room, so I had to put a towel across the door crack to keep it from just flooding my room. But I'm sitting in this room. It's hot, muggy, and it's like August, right, in North Carolina. And so that last week after they cut my house apart was pretty brutal. And Andy, it's like, stay in here, we're getting things ready. I'm like, all right. And, I'm just like, I don't know, I have no clue what's going to happen. I hear them start counting down. 3, 2, 1. And I walk out, and there's the entire ECU marching band, all the guys there, my family's there. They got the cage to the 500,000 opened up. And I remember walking up to the red line, and I was like, this could be a trick. It's day 99, right? I'm like, are you sure it's 100 days? He's like, I'm sure. All right. And I stepped over the line, and then everything starts going. They blow the color popper things, and man, it was a pretty awesome feeling. So.
And at that point, you just won a bunch of money, but you had quit your job.
Yep.
You had a farm.
Yep.
In Oklahoma, not North Carolina. And now, clearly, Jimmy took a liking to you, or the crew did.
Yeah, me and Jimmy got along really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you know that you were going to continue to work for MrBeast at that point? How did it go from you win the circle to?
So we got along, and he would joke about come work here. You're unemployed. It was a good point, right? It's a great way to get somebody to come work for you. Have them quit their job, trap them in a circle for 100 days. You're pretty unemployed at the end of it. So that was definitely weird. That's the weirdest company onboarding experience I've ever had. So it's definitely weird training. I'm highly trained at this point, and so yeah, he's just and I was like, I can't. We got our farm in Oklahoma. I got to move out here, and I just didn't know if the family would be down for it. But it turned out everybody was super down to move to North Carolina. My wife loved Oklahoma, and so it was the biggest sacrifice was for her, for sure. And but we felt it was the right thing to do, and so we took some time off, and then I came back a month later and started working for him. So, and he was like, "What will I do?" He's like, "I don't know, we'll figure it out." I'm like, "I love it."
Perfect.
That's literally my motto. We'll just roll with it,
I've been in and out of a lot of different jobs similar to you, mainly with the same motivation behind it. It's I I get into something that I like, I do it for a few years. It's like find something that I don't like about
It's
it.
the
and-
curse of the ADD. Like get into a hobby, like get decent at it, and like that's not fun anymore.
Right, right. So I think I seen you in a recent MrBeast video. You're still working with them, right?
Yep.
Okay. How do you find time to do so many things? How are you working for him?
So
And-
those videos are older.
Okay.
Right. So we did a bunch of survival videos last year.
Uh-huh.
And then I wasn't part of Beast Games.
Right.
So when they were doing all that, I was able to pivot and help Western North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't really have like a very specific role. Where before I was traveling with him everywhere and doing these survival videos. Well, that's another thing. I was like, people are like, the cave video is not real. I want to shake them because that is the coldest, most miserable I've ever been in my life. You know, we're 7 days in a cave. It's 40 degrees. It's wet. You're soaking wet the entire time. Like, go get soaking wet and go sit in your refrigerator.
Right.
Like, that's what we were going through. You know, we did not leave that freaking frigid hellhole for 7 days. You know, so. But traveling and doing that I wouldn't have had time. There's just no way. I was 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. But it was just perfect timing that Beast Games was kicking off. And I don't do the game show stuff. That's not my role. I only do survival content. And so I just had downtime. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go Western North Carolina and help people. Like, yeah, go. You know,
So when you're working for Jimmy, it's only on the survival videos. So if you're not like on set on a survival video, you don't have other role there?
not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but before I'd done other things. I'd ran post, I'd ran IT. I was his chief of staff for a while. So I've had other roles, but at Beast Games, it was just kind of like, I was getting ready to figure out what's next. And then Hurricane Helene hit, and that became what's next for the next few months. So, yeah. Yeah.
And now FEMA has stepped in. They're repairing some of the roads and stuff. Have you felt like, I mean, I know you mentioned earlier people could be like, oh, now FEMA's got it under control, I don't need to do it. But does it seem like it's harder to find people in need now, or?
No.
No.
So it's the emergency need is being handled by FEMA, right? Which is what it should be. They're putting people in hotels. We're not putting people in hotels anymore. I mean, we spent with Mercury One $60,000 one night extending rooms. 60
Oh,
grand,
my.
which doesn't seem like a lot of money in the federal's eyes, but for us, that's a significant outflow for a small charity.
Sure.
And the fact that we were having to do it was infuriating. It was 14 degrees in the middle of a winter storm, and you told people at 5:30 the day before you're extending them till Tuesday. What does that do? Like, here be less stressed but more stressed, right? And so we extended people for 3 weeks because we weren't going to trust FEMA that they were actually going to not kick people out on the Tuesday. Well, Trump gets his inauguration happens, and they immediately say, okay, it's either March or May. It's long enough that I don't have to worry about it. So what FEMA's doing and what the Trump administration is doing right now, also too, the Army Corps of Engineers back. And they've been there the whole time. Sure, what were they doing? Right? Now there's armies of dump trucks and there's excavators everywhere. And so this idea that it was almost done is just a lie. Like, I live streamed when Trump came to Swannanoa for one purpose. I wanted to have his motorcade come into my live stream, and I wanted to show the condition of Swannanoa. Swannanoa is right off I-40. It is easy to get to. It is accessible, so there's no reason it wasn't cleaned up, right? So if Swannanoa is not clean, they sure as hell haven't cleaned up the hollers that are impossible to get up into. So I wanted, Trump's coming in. This is the current state of affairs. I did it like as an archival record, and I'm already using it because people are saying, oh, Army Corps of Engineers already cleaned it up. Why did they ignore Swannanoa? Why did they ignore Black Mountain? You know, what was actually happening? And so now that FEMA is putting people in hotels, cleanup is happening, Operation Shelter can focus on the rebuild now. We can spend some of this money on rebuilding houses. I have enough to build probably 2 houses right now.
That's
And
so
so
cool.
it doesn't sound like a lot in the scheme of things, but if we all rebuilt 2 houses, you know, then it would start to add up pretty quick. But the biggest thing is we rebuild that house begins to pay dividends for the people that live there. Like, they're able to keep working. They're able to go spend money at the grocery store. They're able to go out to dinner, you know, so that helps keep, they're not having to put everything for the next 5 years of their life into their house, which crushes the economy. And so, and then maybe by the time we finish the second house, enough attention will be made from the first house being built that we can build the third house. And for me, I would love a network to come alongside and just pair up with us. And let's just do like Joanna Gaines, Chip Gaines home makeover. Like, I think people will watch the heck out of that. Rebuilding Helene, like,
Oh, totally.
Like, why are the networks not calling? So Magnolia Network, if you're listening, like, I got a show for you.
Yeah,
you
get them on.
And so, but you know what I mean? Like, I think people are interested to see what this lady, this wonderful lady, who's done everything right. We went through what she sent us a book of what she's done. She is so prepared. She is so on the ball. She paid her house off in 2013 and had everything taken from her in 2024. She's years from retirement. She did everything right. And at the end of the day, she got a check for $42,000. Have you checked what it cost to build a house lately? $42,000 doesn't even do the groundwork to build it, right? And so her insurance company hosed her. Her FEMA didn't hose her. They did exactly what they said they were going to do. But the thing is they offered to buy her land at the price of what it was worth before the storm. So I'm like, wait, so they have the money. She's like, I'm not selling my daddy's land. There's no way, it's been in our family for generations. But FEMA has the money to purchase this land at the pre-storm value, but they can only give you $42,000 to rebuild it? That seems weird.
It seems like they're trying to buy up your land.
It's exactly what they're doing and turn it into green spaces because they hate people living in the country. It's the only thing I can figure.
So they're buying it to, turn it into a park?
Yep, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, green zones.
But how does, I like the idea of parks, green zones.
Sure.
Right? That's cool. But why is FEMA in the business?
I don't know. I got banned on TikTok for talking about this. I posted FEMA's webinar where they talk about this program. And I said in the beginning of it, this is how FEMA takes your land. And I played their freaking webinar that literally tells them exactly how they take it. And I got banned off TikTok. Yeah. For misinformation. I was like, it's their webinar.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so, but TikTok said I appealed it. They denied my appeal. It was irrevocable. I went on X, which was like getting banned on TikTok is like a badge of honor over on X. I didn't realize that. I'm like a war hero coming back from the Chinese front line. And so they went viral that I got banned. And then somebody said, hey, I saw your TikTok the other day. I'm like, what other day? It's like 6 or 7 days later. I said, yeah, on your account. I went, sure enough, my account was back. No email of why, no communication of why they changed their mind. I have all the emails of irrevocable banning, but they just reactivated my account. But when I was getting 1.8 million, 2.4 million, now I post something, I get 147 views.
Oh,
so they literally like re-injured my account, gave it back to me, but now when I post something, like my 147 closest friends, I guess, respond to it, and that's it.
Yeah, the people that go directly to your page.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
and that's it. You're never hitting
I'm not hitting the algorithm. Like, I am cut off. And so I was like, but yeah, so I couldn't believe that was fake news, but it wasn't, and it's true. So that whole story to say, that's exactly how that program works.
It's not, you know someone who got offered the money. How is that even possible that it's fake news at that
I
point,
really don't
right?
know, because I linked their webinar. I think maybe the censor, my personal agent that's assigned to me, just saw me say, this is how FEMA takes your land, and went banned. They didn't watch where I proved it.
Right.
And I guess maybe I was lying. They don't take your land. They buy your land. This is how FEMA buys your land. Maybe that's what I should have said.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what.
Okay.
I'm sorry, TikTok. I deserve to be banned. That was misinformation. No,
Slight
but
misphrasing maybe.
and I hated it because when they were talking about banning TikTok, I was all for it. But the libertarian in me was screaming that it's not okay.
That's a tough topic for me because I'm also like lean libertarian,
Yeah.
right? Let me do what I want as long as I'm not hurting
others.
someone else. Yeah. So that's tough. The TikTok ban. I think the only reason that I'm kind of behind it is the national security risk,
here.
right? It's like if there really is a data risk, then okay, maybe we don't want that being run by the Chinese government. But
Right. My concern is, whoever gets elected in 2028, they're like, X is a security risk, right? So I feel like once you give government power, they don't know when to stop taking it. So be
I
careful.
was so worried
Yeah.
that Kamala was going to come in and just yank X.
That's what I
right?
tell people. Be wary of giving power to the government that you wouldn't want the other side to have.
Yes.
Just because Trump's in office, he ain't emperor. He's out in 4 years, and we don't know who gets elected. We were all surprised by Biden, and so be careful what power you give to the government because it will be used against you at some point. And remember, there's not one law the government won't kill you for. right? So you don't get comfortable with the government going forward the next 4 years. It is still the government.
I was making that point a few times on Timcast last night that, like, yeah, it's great if we give Trump this power right now.
Yeah.
He's going to do the things we want. But you really think that the next guy that comes in, you want them to have that
Yeah.
power? No. I don't trust power concentrated like that, right?
Yep.
Disperse the power, local power. I think that's the way that everything scales, right?
does.
If you try to do too much top down, it's just not going to work.
Well, it's just public education, for example. Like, it's not going to fit for everyone. The best person to decide the education plan for their child's a parent. It's the most local form of government over the child. And so I think that's just a good example of, like, one size doesn't fit all. And it goes for state governments too. You know, like, I think too many states are ruled by the state and not the locale. Like, why does Riverside County why does California, San Francisco get to tell Riverside County what it does with guns in its county?
Right.
The local people decide with their constitutional right. And I'll go even further. What does even local government have the right to tell you what to do with your guns? But my point is, like, if the state is overstepping the local rights, then the federal definitely is. And but I think we have our constitutional rights, and we don't need much else. Like, I don't need much protecting from anything else.
I think the 10 Commandments and the Constitution, and we're pretty much covered,
Pretty solid,
right? Just
yeah.
like delete the rest of
Yeah,
the laws,
yeah.
please. Common sense, like that
We want
bothers
roads.
me.
We can pay licensing fees for our vehicles for roads.
Right.
You know, if we want national defense, we can run tariffs, and all the money coming in and out of our country can pay for national defense. You know, the idea of an income tax is absurd. The fact that we pay property tax on property that we own free and clear for the rest of our lives is some feudalism level stuff.
Oh, my brother, he
So,
flips out about that constantly.
I pay a lot of property taxes. And so it's like, I have to pay this the rest of my life. And so it keeps you kind of part of the system until you die, you know, and so, or it just forces family lands to get split up. But yeah, so we're property tax, we pay sales tax, we pay gas tax, we pay income tax, you know, it's like, oof. Inflation's a tax, one of the biggest hidden taxes. You know, we need more tax. We don't have to tax this more. We don't have to up the tax rate anymore. We just print more money. We get taxed naturally, right? And so it lowers the value of the tax burden. So, but yeah, that's I don't even know how we got off on that. You said taxes, and I just like wigged out.
I think we were talking about, bringing things local, right?
Oh, local, yeah.
Yeah, so schools specifically, are you homeschooling your
Yeah.
kids? Man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I went through tutoring my daughter in math this month because her finals were coming up, and she was doing okay. I think she had like a low B in the class, and her final was coming up, and she really wanted to get an A. She has straight A's so far in high school, and she's like, Dad, I need to get an A in math. I don't know how I'm going to do it, whatever. This is so hard. I don't understand these problems. I'm like, well, you're getting a B. You must kind of understand, right? And as it turns out, they basically teach you how to go through the motions, right? It's like, you take this number and you do that, but they don't know why it works.
Right.
So then if the problem even gets like slightly changed, she didn't know, she had no clue, she didn't even know where to start because she didn't know the problem she was solving. She just knew the motions
Exactly.
to go through. And I'm
They
sitting
teach
here, I'm
you to
going
take
like,
the test.
how many other subjects is it like this? What is she actually learning? She's learning how to do busy work.
Exactly.
All the stuff that you and I, when we were in school, we just didn't do
Right,
it.
right.
Right? Like I was exactly like you. I got 100%
I guess I'll be homeless, you
on
know,
all my
yeah, yeah,
tasks. And you just couldn't get me to do busy work.
No,
if
it's
I could
impossible.
already pass the final, why am I going through and writing 100 math problems down, right? Like it just didn't make any sense to me.
So you would follow instruction and do what you're told.
That's
That's
what they
you learn.
teach you.
Yep.
Which, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it might work for like the lower 40% of the population with no ambition, and you know, they maybe weren't going to get a whole lot accomplished on their own. But for people like me, it did me no service whatsoever. I mean, half the time they kicked me out of the classroom. Like I had teachers who literally, one of them in junior high, they literally gave the final on the first day because the idea was like, how much is everyone going to improve, right? You take the final on the first day and the last day, and look how much I taught you. I got like 96% on the first day. she put me in the copy room the whole year. So it was like me and one other person that got an A on the copy room, and we just bullshitted the whole time, shot staples out of
Seems
our
like
teeth
a
at each
solid
other.
plan. Yeah.
So I didn't learn a damn
Yeah.
thing. I was being babysat, right? And I really wish that I could homeschool my kids, but there's so many families now where like both people are working.
Yep.
And I work from home now, but I mean, it's busy enough just for me to pick up my kids from school and bring them back home, right?
You could probably homeschool in the amount of time you take getting ready for school, transporting them to school, returning them to school, and unwinding from school. You don't have to homeschool 8 hours a day. Kids don't need it. I may get drugged for saying that, but they don't need 8-9 hours of instruction a day. Most kids can't tolerate it, nor do they need it. They should be like, you just don't, it doesn't have to look like what school looks like. It doesn't mean Monday through Friday. You know, my kids are light years ahead of other kids, and they probably have had half the schooling.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been more effective.
Well,
right?
I don't doubt that for a second. In 4 hours, I got her to where she could get an A on all of those tests that she got C's on, right? In 4 hours.
So think of the class size as 1/30th, right? So if you're there for 10 hours, let's just say make math easy, you know, how much time did you actually get? 1/10, right? At a best case, in a private school, maybe 1/15th. But 1/30th, one-on-one time, I bet it's even less than that because they didn't like the teachers engaged that whole time.
Right.
So it's mostly self-study anyway. And so if you spent 2 or 3 hours a day with your kids, giving them instruction and guidance on what to do and checking their work, then you're already way ahead of the system with a much smaller input.
Right.
And there's co-ops where people get together and help. My daughter loves her co-op. And then they only need to go to school till they're 16. They don't need to go to school till they're 18, right? They can go to community college at 16 if they want to go to college route. They can get a job and start working at 16, start learning. But even then, public school's not going to teach them finance, how business works, how money works. They're not going to teach them. I tell everybody should be playing board games with your kids.
Yes, please.
Complex board games with your kids because it'll teach them how to think 2 moves ahead. You'll think resource management, worker placement, engine building, like all these things that are, you get to see it really fast in a board game. But then it's like, I literally, everything I do is a board game. Business is a board game. It's just a game that, however you play it, it's how many points you score, right? And it's like, then you look at what you're doing and say, oh, I could make those moves more efficiently going forward. Oh, if I do this, that's going to affect this later. You'll put your kids way ahead just homeschooling and playing board games with them, you know?
What's your favorite board game?
Right now, it's Dune Imperium.
Dune Imperium.
Dune Imperium.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta check it out.
Really good. Probably the best tactical strategy board game out there. It's a great conflict game. Like, you're basically playing the great houses of the Dune world.
Okay.
And you're vying for control over Arrakis, right? The spice. If you've seen the movie, you understand the references. But there's like, you have a hand of cards that let you kind of do your actions. So you're doing a deck building mechanic. You're moving your swordsmen around, your agents to go yield your will upon the factions or combat or whatever. And so it's like deck building, resource management, worker placement is a flaw. Paul, the designer, friend of mine, has become a friend of mine because of the game. And we're some of the top players in the world at it. And yeah, it's like been our grind at work. We actually, if you go search MrBeast, he's the best Dune player. You know, we won a tournament. We brought the best players in the world in. We flew all the best people in the world of this game in, and he took first place.
Damn.
Yeah, so, but it was just cool. It's just like, that's what we do for fun, is play these complex, deep thinking board games. And so I think if we get our kids thinking that way, forget, like, nobody cares if you remember what year the Civil War started. Just know that 1800s, we had a civil war, and this is the reasons why. You know what I mean? Like, we try to
This is what we learned from it.
Yeah. What did we learn from it? And with math, like, who cares if you can take the test? Do you fundamentally understand the relationship of numbers? Do you understand compound interest? Do you understand logarithmic growth versus linear growth? Like, there's only a handful of mathematic principles you really need to understand for life.
I mean, my name, Penny 2X, is because my grandpa used to tell a story. He'd be like, hey, would you rather have $1 million today? You walk away, you're a rich man,
or
right?
a penny every day and double it.
And double it for 30 days. And I watched him ask that question to dozens of people in my life. And when we would go out to dinner, and we went out like once a week with grandpa, he was very outgoing, right? And the table, if he could get eye contact with someone at the table, he'd ask them the question.
Yeah.
If we were standing in the lobby and someone's nearby, he'd ask them the question, and no one got it right. Everyone wants $1 million. And that concept, though, I mean, it obviously stuck with me. I learned it when I was a kid, and when I created a pseudonym, that's what I chose, right? And it taught me to like think about the compounding of growth and investing in yourself, and like a small gain today can turn into a big gain in the future. And that was impactful. It meant that I made decisions differently and I lived my life differently because of that. But if you just learn patterns on paper, just how to solve a problem, but you don't even really understand the relationship between the numbers, like you said, that was such a great way to articulate it. She didn't actually learn anything useful, because never in her life is she going to see a problem in the exact right format that she needs to go through that pattern and solve it.
Nor have the applied ability to understand why it matters in life.
Exactly.
If I taught you that, factorial, right? Like 2 factorial 2, 2 factorial 3, 2 factorial. Like, if I just teach you what that means and I don't show you how it applies, like we don't do enough applied mathematics, too much theoretical mathematics. Very few people need theoretical mathematics, right? We mostly need applied math, and we need probably a year of it at a high level, right? At most. And you just don't, like, you need to be able to fundamentally understand numbers. But I don't need, like, if I need to go solve the rate of drain of a conical shaped tank, and I do run into this with farming and stuff, like what size pipe, what's the friction loss, right? But I understand the physics that there is friction loss, and I understand that we need to do that math, but I don't need to know that off the top of my head. I just go on, I'm like, I do the calculus on a computer. But I fundamentally understood that I knew that as the water level lowered, the flow would decrease.
Right.
You know, because every 1 foot of water is 2.13 psi. Now you're trying to solve for a rate of change over time. It's complicated theoretically, but pretty straightforward mathematically. But you don't need to memorize all that stuff.
Right. So, yeah, the applied math, right? Like applied everything, the dates in school, it's so awful. That is like, I think the one thing that I would love to fix more than anything else. But aside from getting everyone out of the classroom and getting everyone back into learning in their homes, I can't think of a better way to solve it, right? Because the issue is that everyone is at their own pace.
Yeah.
And one teacher trying to teach 30 people.
Lowest common denominator.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And not only that, but now we have laws where like they're keeping children that are like super disruptive in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
And early this year, and it's gotten better, but she came home crying to me because she couldn't pay attention in class because there was a kid next to her just causing all kinds of trouble the whole time. They didn't belong in that class, but they were there anyway. And the lowest common denominator, bringing everyone down to that level, that's a big problem.
It's hard.
I think.
It's not an easy problem to fix, though. Like, I mean, it's such a long-standing system, and, you know, we've given up the 2-parent household to be kind of a half-parent household. With the, inflation driving pretty much everyone to need 2 incomes to survive. I mean, there is something to say about leaving the cities. I think that's one of the biggest steps you can take. Is just like, what's life look like if I just get out of this big city? Maybe I don't need to have 2 incomes. I think one of the biggest things we do is put, the moms back in the house with the kids. You know, and but when you have to have 2 incomes, what do you do? Like, food is my single biggest cost. If I was to go out and just buy grocery store food for 5 people, it'd be more than my mortgage, And so if you got a high mortgage rate or just a big house, then you got 2 car payments. I think debt is something we've been tricked into. I don't think it's almost ever worth it. I think there's an argument for a house loan, and that's about it. But everything else, if you don't have the cash, you shouldn't buy it. And I think what we've done is we've wrapped ourselves into a debt that forces 2 people to work, and it sneaks up on you because of inflation. So you thought you were good at the debt you signed up for, and it's like, hey, honey, I need you to pick up something on the side. It's just, things are so expensive. And then it becomes a full-time job. And I mean, how do you break that? I think that's the hard part about it. You can't just be like, well, I'm going home to homeschool my kids. That's not a choice that a lot of people can make, or maybe ever will be able to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, for example, like, I mean, I'm not actually stuck, but I'm kind of stuck in the city, right? It's like my family's there,
Right,
whatever.
right.
And then there's so many divorced households, right?
course.
Like I'm divorced now, so like if I move, then I need to convince my ex to move with us, and that just makes
That's
that
what I
much
mean. It's
harder.
not an easy. It's easy to say. It's hard to do. Right.
Right.
And so that's the one thing I want to be like conscious of is like it's easy to sit here and go, this is what should happen. This is how things should work. You know, but it's like must be nice. You know, so.
But it feels like ultimately a lot of these problems, the best solution is in the family, right? And I think our families are broken. We don't focus on that. That's not the dream. And one thing that I struggle a little bit with is it feels like in a lot of these cases, maybe having the wife stay at home is the solution, right? Going back to the more traditional family unit, the more traditional values, whatever. But then I have 3 daughters and I'm like, man, well, I sure want them to be independent and I sure want them to be able to take care of themselves. So I want them to have that mindset. But then what really I want is for them to have a fulfilled, happy life. And if I think that probably the best way for that to happen is for them to be quote unquote dependent in a relationship where someone else is earning the money and they're taking care of the household, that's like a very conflicted view to have both of those at the same time.
Well, and like for me, like, if it wasn't for my wife, I couldn't do anything. Like it's not a dependency on me. If anything, I'm dependent on her to keep the house and raise the children and be my support. And like I think
You're dependent on each other.
Right? It's like this doesn't work if both of us, you know, it's not a or then. It's like I'm stronger because of her, and she's stronger because of me because we're one.
But that's assuming that you are one and that you actually stay together. Because if you ever divorce, then one of you is in better shape than the other.
Well, yeah,
right?
that's just the consequence of divorce, right? That's not what marriage is designed. Marriage is not designed to make divorce easy. Right, that's not the marriage is meant to be forever until death do we part, right? It's not a temporary partnership, and so as soon as you take something that's meant to be bonded forever and split it, it's going to cause chaos, right? And so I can't fix marriage to make divorce better, right? But what you can do is focus on marriage to
reduce the odds of divorce.
Yeah,
You're right, and I think of all possible outcomes, getting married and getting divorced is bad. That's what happened to me. It's not the end of the world, but it's not what I would prefer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Nobody says, "Oh, this was great."
Not getting married ever sounds really lonely to me, right? You're not going to raise a family. You're not going to have, someone with you, whatever. The best thing that can happen is if you get married and you stay happy, right? And it seems like the best way to do that is with the more traditional relationship. Yeah. And man, that's a struggle though. That's a struggle as a man looking for a woman, right? Because it's like, before I know, what am I just going to support them then? Who's supporting them now, right? It's not like I'm 44. I can't look for someone just getting out of college, right? Like that's a bit too young. So like, where's a grown woman that is ready to do that, right? And maybe they're supporting themselves now, but they have to be willing to give that up. And like, man, what a nightmare. And then the same thing with my kids. It's like, well, assuming you don't find someone, I want you to be able to support yourself. Assuming you find someone and it doesn't work out, I want you to be able to support yourself. But really what I want for you is to find someone and be happy, right? And it's like, should I just lean fully into that and not worry so much about if there's a divorce, right? That's tough. Because what I really want is the best for them. Yeah. And I just don't know what the right answer is.
For me, I'm going to get biblical again.
That's okay.
Because for me, I don't believe marriage works outside of Christ. Because when 2 broken people come together to try to fix each other, it usually ends up with 2 broken people again, right? Because they don't have something bigger than themselves guiding them through marriage. Marriage is tough, right? And so when both of you can point to Scripture and point to Christ and say, this is our purpose, and when we're banging heads and I go, and I'm furious, and I recognize it's my pride, I recognize it's my ego, right? And I recognize that, I'm, as the head of the house, called to love my wife like Christ loved the church. Like that's in the book. And he died for the church. So I've got a pretty high calling as a husband, scripturally, to sacrifice for my family and my wife. And when we struggle the most is when I am about me. When it's about myself, worship me, and you're not properly worshiping me, and you're not respecting who I am. But when I recognize who I actually am outside of Christ, then that's when I can actually be humble in our relationship, and we can recognize it's bigger than us. And that's, I don't know how to be married outside of the doctrine of Christ being the head of the church and the husband being the head of the household. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I
we know
obviously
our
haven't
places.
figured it out. So.
I think it's tough without it because you're relying on each other, and there's no perfect humans. If we were perfect, right, marriage would be easy, right? I would be humble and loving, and I'd provide perfectly, and I'd never lose my temper. I wouldn't do selfish ambitions. Like, but we're not perfect. We're far, far from it. And so without a perfect father to model after, or for my wife to lovingly point me to, like, you're not being what you're called to be. I can't be like, don't throw that in my face. 'Cause what I'm saying is don't throw scripture in my face, right? No, she's lovingly calling me to be who I'm supposed to be in this marriage. And what the blueprint for marriage is a biblical thing, right? It's in the Bible. That's why I hate government having any control over it, one side or the other. I don't think government has any business in marriage. It's just not a government thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's way outside the government. Like, people are like, oh, you're for gay marriage. No, I'm against government control of marriage, period. It is not a government institution, right? If people want to have a marriage, that's fine. It doesn't have to be what I call marriage, but it's definitely not a government thing. But for me, marriage works lifelong only with like the biblical principles behind it. I'm sure people are going to hate hearing that, but that's what it's worked for me, and that's all I can attest to.
Well, I don't really care what people hate hearing because, I say often things that I know people are going to hate hearing, and I know I'm going to get low engagement, but I just have to say it because that's my whole purpose. If I can't say what I believe, I can make money doing something else, right? You are contributing in the way that you can by helping out the people in North Carolina, and I really believe that I can contribute with conversation, right? And I believe that there are so many things that we're not talking about that we need to, and a lot of people feel like oh, people are going to hate me for saying this, so then they just don't say it.
That's what we're trained. We're trained to not talk about two things: politics and religion, and it's probably the two biggest things we should talk about.
Right.
Like literally the two biggest things. But a controlled population, you don't want them talking about politics because you're just going to get angry, right? And then again, you don't talk about religion because they'll find a greater purpose than just checking in every day to whatever you've got them in the process of doing.
Religion also has the aspect of my way versus your way.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. But talk about it.
Right.
Right. Do you even know what my way is? Right? Do you like? That's why people. It's just like, oh, your religion thinks X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, those are actually really bad people who think that. I don't look at them as Christians at all.
Right.
And I'll be happy to say that. It's like that is not loving. You know what I mean? So, but we don't talk about what each other stands. That's when we let the media declare what we are to each other, and so you're letting someone else control what you believe by letting them tell people what you believe. But if we talk about it, then I would understand it and have more compassion, more sympathy for what your reality is and what you believe. And like I said, I'm not here to argue people into anything. I'm just here to live the way I think is right and let it be salt and let it be a light, and say like, people who don't agree with it or struggling and like, oh, this is my marriage or this or that. I can come and say, here's what works for me, and here's what I follow. And they can try it. And if it works for them, great. That's between them and God, the Holy Spirit. I can't save people. That's not what I can't imagine having that burden on my heart. That if it was up to me right now to convince you to follow God, like if it was like your eternal salvation is on my shoulders.
Right.
Like that's hubris, and that's thinking a lot of myself if I thought I had that power. But the flip side of that is the burden that would be. Knowing if I didn't say the right thing, somehow you'd be robbed of a life of eternal happiness, So, but if we don't talk about those things, we don't understand that that's what people's footing is like, I'm just sharing it out of love, not out of a quota. I didn't have to hit my monthly quota, right? So,
You mentioned government staying out of marriage. What do you say about things like child support, for example, or alimony? Is that something that should just not exist under the law, or?
oh, see, that's not government being in marriage. That's just people splitting and dealing with assets. Like,
Okay, but if you weren't married, then that contract isn't made, though, right? So that's where it gets blurry.
oh, I see what you're saying. 'Cause there's not a government contract.
Right.
That's again, we just talk about things, right? It is a good point in that because again, I don't think of the divorce outcome. I
Right.
think of the marriage part of it.
Right.
So I guess I guess the government needs to know you're married, but they shouldn't have control over who marries who. Is what
Right,
I guess
right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to check a box that says we're married, like just like I check a box that says I have kids, give me my money back.
Right.
You know. So maybe you check a box and it's like, but that's like, I don't need the government's permission. I don't need their marriage permit. I don't need a license to get married. Right. Like I don't like that language. You know, because if they can tell two guys they can't get married, what stops them from telling I can't get married to somebody for whatever, reason? Yeah,
right,
you know what I
right.
mean. So it's like, that's a government institution. So it's like, let's just call it civil union, right? And that way people don't have to even get into the marriage language. They can just say we're choosing to join together as a tax purpose, and to combine our resources. You
Yeah.
know, so I would just worry when we let the government define things.
Maybe it ought to be two separate things. It's like you get married and that's like a religious thing or whatever, and you click the checkbox and it's like, we are signing this contract that, I'm going to take care of her if we get divorced to some extent
Yeah.
because she's sacrificing for our marriage,
Well,
right?
exactly. And even then, like nowadays, prenups and stuff, like people are handling their contracts outside the government.
Right.
Like we're getting married. We've both been around for 40 years. It's our second marriage. Like I have some money coming in. You have some money coming in. Like we're gonna mediate this divorce.
Right.
Is basically what you're saying, And so I don't know that it even needs even then, if you're going to get married, then sign a contract with each other.
Make
if you're
your own
worried
contract.
about that.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot more sense. Optional contracts going in between the two people.
It'd probably make it a lot cleaner on the back end, But like I think my concern is you should only ever go into marriage as a lifelong commitment. But that's my belief on marriage. And what if I became supreme leader of the United States? And I'm like, guess what? From now on, divorce is illegal, right? Like it used to be. That used to be how it was. You had to have the king's permission to get divorced.
Right.
I sure don't want to go to that.
No.
So it's like, that's why I'm always just careful of letting the government determine how we interact as free people.
Yeah, I don't trust them at all. I mean, next thing you know, it's going to be like, oh, you're brunette, you can't marry a blonde, or you can't marry someone with blue eyes because we're trying to keep, blue-eyed people
You have to
marrying
do
blue-eyed
genetic
people.
testing and have genetic compatibility for no diseases before you can marry and reproduce.
Right.
Right?
That could easily be it.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a quota of marriage license. Only certain people from these protected groups can get married this year. Or you have to marry somebody from a different group. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know we seem so hyperbolic right now, but we've seen crazier things. But yeah, it's not the government's business.
It's
Yeah.
hard to call anything hyperbolic after what
Yeah.
weing seen after the past couple of years. I feel like
There's
we
no way they
lived
would
in
ever
a movie.
Yeah, there's no way they'd ever force experimental medicine on us, right? So
There's no way we would get fired from our job if we didn't get a shot,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, come on.
there's no way
It's
you get
crazy.
fired from your job for posting on social media.
Right.
Yeah. It's the world's insane.
What's next? I mean, Project Shelter, and you're building the houses,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. I don't know what's next. I never do. Very much, which my wife is not happy with. Go by the day. I just gotta just roll with the day, and I do think strategically, but I've never been able to really truly understand what God has for me in this life. It just like I couldn't have wrote this. I don't take credit for any of this, by the way. Like I didn't make MrBeast happen. I didn't make World Series of Poker happen.
Yeah, you did.
I did once I got there, but the opportunities came to me. You know what I mean?
but
Like,
they came to you because you did things.
well, right. But I'm saying like I didn't set out and like here's my
download my ebook on how to get into a MrBeast video. 10 easy steps to become a disaster relief influencer. Like, I didn't even take clothes with me up to Western North Carolina the first day I went up. I thought I was delivering some Starlinks to a fire station, and I was like, I didn't even take a suitcase, and I was up there for 5 days. And so that's all I mean is like, the stuff that's happened is just so much bigger, and it is saying yes to stuff. It is being prepared. It is being proficient at what you do that makes a lot of it.
Relationships with people who will tell Jimmy that he knows a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But it's just saying, I don't know what's next because I will think too small. Right? I will think too small, and if I just focus on loving people and loving God, and focus on that and see where that takes me. You know what I mean? And so. Politics, I'm getting pulled into that arena now. Does Operation Shelter grow into something bigger? I don't know. Here We Grow is what our actual focus is. And maybe that becomes, Operation Shelter was just a way to kind of bring that to the forefront.
Sure.
Right? Bring some awareness to that. Start the platform. And then, I don't know, maybe I quiet down and just grow really great food for my neighbors. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine with all those things. I'll be satisfied in all of them. But yeah, what's next? I don't know. Just kind of playing it. I have a big heart for men's health. Personally, I have a heart for men's mental health. I mean, my whole side of the family is devastated between suicide and alcoholism. Right? I am the last standing, well, me and my half brother, last standing Hendrix bloodline from our line. My kids are the only, will pass the name on, because my dad drank himself to death. His dad and mom drank themselves to death. My great-grandfather drank himself to death I won't say where he was at in Mexico, but he's in Mexico. And then I lost my brother to suicide. And I don't think today is any better for men's mental health, right?
It's probably worse.
It's probably worse. And so we're talking generations of this. And so finding a way to give people purpose again, obviously for me, I know what ultimate purpose looks like, right? But I think there's a step of starting to find that purpose and then being open to a bigger purpose. And so I definitely want to do something that deals with men's health and just dealing with young men who are just lost. Like, just don't feel like they have a place, don't feel like they're appreciated, don't feel like they have a purpose. They've been demonized, so I don't know what that looks like either, but I know that's in my heart. I want to be a voice for people. I spent a lot of time in DC yesterday. I spent some time at some bars last night, and everybody I talked to was a lobbyist.
Oh.
Openly a lobbyist. I don't know if you know it, but the Sheriff's Department of California have lobbyists. I was like, wow, that's crazy, and it pays good. And so everybody I talked to was a lobbyist for this, that, or another. Oh, I'm a lobbyist for this. And I'll talk to anybody. And I was sitting there, driving here this morning. I was like, who's a lobbyist for the people? Like, we don't have a lobbyist.
We are.
We are, but we don't, like, we're also trying to survive. Like, not everybody has
no
the
one's
freedom.
paying us.
I was able to just drive to DC on a whim and go tell my senators I want RFK appointed. I was the only one in the halls. There was no one. I'm talking the Senate hall was empty yesterday. I was the only one walking around the halls at 2 p.m. other than workers, right? It was just empty. And I'm like, we have a massive appointment coming up tomorrow. Now there's people there today, but today they're here in the hearing. You needed to tell them yesterday.
Right.
And so I went because I want to speak for the North Carolinians that have given me a voice and say, this is what we expect out of our senators. And so I don't know what it looks like to lobby for the people, but I feel like we need a voice because everyone else has, all the companies have a voice, and that's who they're listening to. We elect them. They're supposed to be our lobbyist, right? That's who it should be. It should be our representative. They should be the one that says, that is not good for the people of North Carolina. That's really hard to do over a really nice dinner, drinks, and promise of future finance, future campaign donations. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that takes a lot of fortitude, and I get it. I saw it when I was there, the game, and just wanting to fit in, and just the posturing. And I'm there in jeans and a hoodie, and I got that Fetterman drip, I got the hoodie on there. I get it, but everybody's just trying to fit in and be liked, and that is a terrible place to be as a representative. You should be one of the most unliked people to half the people you're talking to. And I could tell both sides up there just want to be in, you know? And so I just saw that. And I was blown away. I'm like, everybody here just wants to be liked. And that's terrible for the people that they represent. Because the people that are here giving them the attention only have their, whoever they
All right, we cut out there.
Yeah, I was just saying that they're listening to people who only have, and rightfully so, they're being employed to take that interest to DC. But we don't have any weapons in that fight, right? We just vote for them, and our plan is hope they do what they said they were going to, and hope is not a plan. And so I felt like I wanted to drive up and look them in the eyes and say, this is, as a constituent, what I'd like to see happen with RFK. This one with Tulsi, you know, which is crazy to me that I'm supporting Democrats, you know, because that's where we're at now. The left has moved so far left that we're all kind of in the middle. I think that's where most of America is. We're being, again, with like religion, we're also told that we're far right or far left. Most of us are pretty much in the middle. I talked to a guy from California last night. Same thing. He's like, I'm a Democrat. I said, are you really? And we got to talking, and he's like, well, I'm a California Republican. And I was like, you know what that really means, right? And I was like, you're a libertarian. And he's like, yeah, that's really what I am. You know, but he's in California, so he has to say he's one way or another. You know, there's not room for this middle party, and I think that's something I'd love to see come about, you know, was just having more than two options. I think that would fix a lot of problems.
I hate the two-party system.
Me too.
Right? It's really awful. I just wish everyone was independent and we listened to what their views were and we should voted based on that.
100% should get rid of the D's and R's on ballots.
Right. Let's put key ballot measures and what their positions are on it, under it or something.
Who cares if the ballots, you got a ballot and you got a 15-page book and they get to say what, and then we need to go back and hold them accountable to that. But the fact that I can just go down the ballot and vote R, right? Or D, like that's terrible. That props up the two-party system. And so, because everybody just goes punch. There's no accountability. And then they complain, oh, government's terrible. Like, who'd you vote for? I don't remember. You know? We think that voting for president is like what affects our life. And it's the thing that affects our life the least. Like he's as far away from affecting your local life as possible. And that's another thing I want to focus on this year is local government. Like, I don't know if I'm going to run or support, but I'm going to get involved because I realize the freaking county commissioner has more control over my life than the president of the United States. They can come in and make my life hell building a house. They're not. They're doing great. I love you. You're a great county commissioner. But it works well, and I'm lucky because I have a good county commissioner. You know, and I've got a good utility department. I got my permit on Monday and got my power pole approved on Thursday. You know, like they're doing a phenomenal job. That's not the story in a lot of counties. And then we complain about it, but then we never go to the meetings. We don't show up when they say they're going to make this difficult. And they said, well, nobody showed up, so apparently they don't care that we're doing this. We're doing the will of the people. And so we get very up in arms with presidential elections when we should be ranting and raving at our counties and our cities. Because your city council has more to do with your roads in front of your house than the federal government does. You know, all the stuff that impacts you, your board of education, all that impacts you in a real way. And I bet 95% of people have never stepped into a county meeting or a local city council meeting. If I'm a Senate
I bet
hall,
95 is a low number.
Low number, yeah. If I'm the only person walking around in the Senate hall yesterday at 2 p.m.
in DC, right before a major confirmation.
I was with Nick Soder, right? I was like, Nick, are we supposed to be in here? He's like, yeah, anybody can walk in. I'm like, are you sure anybody can walk in here? He's like, yeah, they have to let you in. As long as you don't have like weapons on you, right? I walked in, put my stuff in a cup, walked through the metal detector, have a nice day. What are you doing here? What's your purpose? They're just there to make sure everybody's safe in there.
Right.
I walked everywhere. I went to every one of my representatives' offices. I got cards from all my staffers. I have their appointment bookers. I have their chiefs of staff. I sat with Tom Tillis' chief of staff for 20 minutes yesterday talking about Western North Carolina, RFK, you know, so they heard me, you know, like I didn't send a strongly worded letter. I came and gave a strongly worded conversation, you know.
Right.
And I think that makes a big difference. You think he remembers all the emails he got? Or the guy that showed up in DC and sat down at a table with them for 20 minutes?
There's no way he even reads all the emails.
There's no
right?
way. There's no way. And I wonder if
impossible.
people are even sending emails. Because I see all these posts, but call your representative, call your representative. I'm in the office 20 minutes. I never even heard the phone ring once. Right? So it's like, is this important or isn't it? And so, and I love the meme or the comic of everybody's bent over, tables on their back, and the government's on top of the table. And it says all we have to do is stand up. Because there's all of us, and it's just one of them, right? But we don't. We don't stand up and say what we believe in. So it's no surprise that our representatives don't represent us.
It's like the same meme as where they're out on the plank.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of people standing on the
You just
plank
gotta
holding
step
it out,
up,
right?
yeah.
Just step up.
And the thing is, I don't want to fight against our representatives, Democrat or I'd love to work with Josh Stein. I'd love if Josh Stein called me to his office. I'm going to burn him up when I don't see him doing what I need to do. But you want to fix me burning you up on social media? Call me in. Let's have a conversation. Help me understand where you're coming from. I may leave that conversation, but no, you're a different party. Not one Democrat senator, anything has ever reached out to me. Not one liberal news media has ever had me. I've been on News Nation, I don't know, half dozen times. Fox and Friends, Newsmax, you name it. I've been like on major news networks. CNN's never once reported on it, never once contacted me. And I have friends that work there. The MSNBC, it's not they don't know who I am, right? So again, it's just, I don't know where I'm going with that, but.
Let's bring it local. I mean, I
Yeah.
really think no one can understand what you are going through in your house, in your hometown, better than your neighbors.
Exactly.
And no one can understand better than the people in your house, your family, right? And it's the same thing with the school. A teacher, the principal, the state, none of them are going to know exactly what my daughter needs.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
what my daughter needs.
And that's exactly why FEMA doesn't work, right? If we came in and
It's
said,
exactly why big government doesn't work.
Exactly. FEMA is just an example of big government. If they came in and said, hey, fire department, we've got $33 billion budget. You just had a disaster. We are going to fund $1 million. Hey, local contractor, how many miles of roads can you fix? Instead of hiring the guys that come in from a different state that have been making big donations to the people that make the decisions, you hire the local contractors. Now they keep their house. All their employees keep their houses. And you take that money, you pump it back into the economy, and they fix the roads they know need fixing. And they fix them in a way they don't fix them and go, oh, you didn't know there was a stream up there that floods every 15 years? Yeah, of course it washed this road out. And they do this already where they work with DOT. And I think that's great for the major freeways. But the cities themselves, they need local help. But it hits the federal, it hits the state. By the time it gets to the local, we got pennies left. And we need to go from there straight to local and then work our way back up.
Yeah,
Get
I
the
agree.
towns fixed and then the infrastructure, and then we can worry about bigger things after that.
It's kind of like take care of yourself before you take care of someone else, and
Yeah.
it just keeps scaling up. Put
Yep.
that mask on yourself in the plane
First.
before you do
Yeah.
anything else, right? I think that's a theme that we would do well to mind. It's been super awesome talking
Yeah.
to you, Shawn. I'm actually shocked how similar we are. We've gone about it very different ways, but we have a very similar mindset and I think similar goals. I'm in a lot of ways the same way where I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, but I know what I want to do for the rest of my life at a high level, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I want the impact and I want to feel good about what I do. And it's like, I'm not a planner. I didn't know what I was going to do today until a few days ago, right?
Same.
I booked this trip like 3 days ago and now I'm here and we're having this conversation.
And you booked the
So-
trip, and I was like, oh, he's going to be in D.C. I should come to D.C.
That's right.
And then I was like, oh, the RFK thing's happening. I should get to D.C. early so I can go do that. It's just like,
Be dynamic,
yeah,
right?
just be dynamic and move with it. Yeah.
Live local, be dynamic. And I just think like have a goal of what you want out of your life. What do you want to feel like, and then make the best decision you can every day along the way. Because man, things are changing so fast now. And I don't think that that's going to slow down anytime soon. So how are you going to plan for 50 years down the
There
road?
was more happened in the last 10 days than happened in the last 4 years, I feel like. So
What an unbelievable, think about just even what happened since January 1st this year. It has been crazy. We're wrapping up January and it feels like it's been a whole year.
yeah, I've lived a lifetime since September 27th. Yeah, it feels that way, very much so.
Yeah. Well, right on, Shawn. So
Alrighty.
super fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right. See you again soon. All right.
With the help of Operation Shelter, and everything that they've done for all the people. Would you say this has been a big change for you and a big impact for you?
Oh, it's like a lifesaver. And picture getting within half my miles of your house and having to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's just dump it all there.